This video is brought to you by Verve. Head on over to verve.co/gaijin for a limited 30-day free trial of over a dozen channels worth of shows, both new and nostalgic. Hey everyone, Gaijin Goomba here. Well, it's October, which means I as a YouTuber am obligated to make some kind of spoopy video, and dude, I am so down with that. Halloween's all about monsters, and monsters are some of the spiciest aspects when it comes to world culture.
And while there's a lot of buzz going around right now with games and their new monster skins, like Doomfist Shape of Water shoutout, Moira's Irish Banshee throwback, and the Inklings turning into dreaded Jiangshi, we wanted to cover something a little more within our wheelhouse, and something that's a lot more scary. Yokai. The dozens, if not hundreds of monsters that make up some of the most terrifying aspects of Japan's folklore.
Well, you say that, but the horrifying image that came with mentioning the word yokai has been getting neutered pretty hard over the last century or so. Creatures that have once shook the resolve of the hardest men have over time been regulated to positions of mischief maker at worst and mascot at best. To the point now that they're being marketed as kid-friendly companions. But yokai, real yokai, were anything but. They tore out souls, devoured human flesh, and made ultimate war with humanity. And the worst of it is that they could be anywhere and anything. From the pretty young gal walking down the street to the very clothes on your back. Now though, they just kinda wanna be your friend.
Maybe, but there is one show, a kid show at that does capture the real terrifying essence of what yokai really were. Gegege no Kitaro. Yeah, we know, another Kitaro video. But to be fair, we've always looked at this series for its social commentary, which it does very, very well. But for an anime whose plot 100% revolves around yokai, we've never once talked about the freaking yokai. So today, we're gonna change that by showcasing our top 5 most terrifying monsters from the series. Because again, despite being a series for children in an age where media prefers to coddle kids rather than challenge them, Gegege no Kitaro holds nothing back in either its social commentary or the actions of its monsters. And trust me, these get pretty graphic. Starting with our number 5 slot, the Kappa.
Oh my god, where do I even begin with these guys? You wanna talk defang monsters? These yokai are some of the biggest, with the once fearsome Kappa now made into an adorable mascot and protector of children. Even in Gegege no Kitaro proper, the Kappa are depicted as pretty easygoing and good-natured creatures. That is until they get shafted by their would-be human boss. That's when they turn heel really quick and rip out his Shirikodama, or literally buttball.
The Shirikodama is believed to be a powerful sphere that all humans have, either just underneath the anus or further into the intestine. And Kappa want it. And there are a couple reasons why. Some folk stories say that it's a human's very soul in corporeal form, while others say it's just a clever name for a human's liver. Either way, a coveted delicacy for the Kappa. But it wasn't just simply the fact that the Kappa stalked humans that made them terrifying, but rather the methods they used to get out your Shirikodama. They'd either reach their long slimy claws up your rump to snatch it, or they would straight up suck it out. And I think you can imagine how. And yes, this ultimately straight up killed the victim. This is how the whole cucumber thing got started. Though Kappa would never turn down a tasty buttball, they favored cucumbers much more and would rather have one tossed to them rather than having to fight literally up the butt to get their alternative delicacy.
Well, I mean, at least the Kappa only go for one person at a time. Our number 4 yokai, Gyuki aka Ushioni, leaves hundreds dead when it attacks. As the name implies, the demon is comprised of a head of a bull, and the rest of its body is either a humanoid or a nightmarish collection of spider legs. These massive, ponderous monsters were believed to dwell near the coasts of modern-day Shimane Prefecture and other parts of western Japan, where they attacked fishermen and brutalized coastal towns over and over again. Devouring their populations, destroying their homes and businesses, and leaving nothing in their wake except disease and curses.
In comparison, the Gyuki of Gegege no Kitaro is pretty one-to-one with its real-life counterpart. The gang ends up on a street raffle vacation to an undisclosed island off of mainland Japan, which, considering the Shimane Prefecture has 2, it's entirely possible for Kitaro, Nekomusume, and Mana to end up somewhere between Okinoshima and Chibu. Not to mention, this new lavish resort spot once was an old fishing village, and Gyuki loved terrorizing fishermen. So that's 2 local connections. As for the monster itself, well, it's just as horrifying as its folklore counterpart. What with all the destruction and eating people, which the episode does not shy away from in the slightest. Finally, there's the Gyuki curse, which the whole episode revolves around, which makes one last parallel to its folklore counterpart, the curses that Gyuki would leave in their wake.
I'll give you the fact that a giant cowhead arachnid would be pretty terrifying, but there's nothing more scary than being attacked by something you love. And that's our number 3 spot, the Tanuki. Really, this one just absolutely breaks my heart, because how could these little guys possibly be evil? Just look at them! They're freaking adorable with their chubby little faces and big round bellies and their massive, Anyway, Tanuki have long since been revered as one of the most kind-hearted yokai of the bunch. At worst, they'll swindle vendors out of food and drink by using leaves they transform to look like cash. Heck, some stories will tell how they'll transform into a bride or a groom just so they can take advantage of the reception banquet. But unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say this about my favorite yokai ever, these guys are actually pretty freaking evil. When Tanuki were first adapted into Japan's folklore through Chinese foxes back in the 7th century, they were anything but good. In fact, in stark contrast to today, where you see plenty of Tanuki statues outside of stores to bring in good fortune, in the olden days, Tanuki were actually symbols of great disfortune. Because not only did Tanuki assume human form so they could actually have their way with mankind, they would also haunt and possess people in a process known as Tanuki-tsuki, wherein the inspirited person would begin to take on the traits of the Tanuki inspiriting them. Symptoms included physical changes like growing Tanuki ears to behavioral changes like overeating. Other symptoms included irritability, increased libido, and random bursts of violence. And just like every other monster on our list, Gegege no Kitaro nails this old depiction to a frightening effect.
In this two-part episode, the Tanuki actually wage war against humanity after being unsealed, and unlike the majority of the other yokai in the show that tried the same thing, these guys actually succeeded through their use of horrible kaiju CGI. With their victory secured, Tanuki martial law gripped the entire country with any hint of anti-Tanuki sentiment landing people in internment camps. Again, yeah, not the nicest bunch of yokai. But the biggest connection between the Tanuki of old and the totalitarian Tanuki of Gegege no Kitaro comes from Mana's attempt to stop the Tanuki herself. Yep, Tanuki-tsuki. Change in physical traits, bouts of irritation and violence, yeah, I think it's all here. So the next time you see one of these well-endowed cuddle buddies, just remember.
Next up on our list is the Wanyudo, or Wheel Monk, and I hate these things. Ever since running into them in Neo and getting subsequently murdered in seconds, I've developed a massive internal fear of this yokai. But when it comes to what they were in real life and how they're depicted in Gegege no Kitaro, oh god, that doesn't even scratch the surface on how horrifying these things are.
In the show, Wanyudo were capable of devouring the souls of entire crowds of people, leaving their empty bodies to crystallize into clusters of diamond, which resident slimeball Nezumi Otoku would sell for easy cash. While that in itself is insanely unsettling, it's not nearly as terrifying as what Wanyudo were believed to be.
See, the reason why it gets the name of Wheel Monk is because it's literally the severed head of a sinful Buddhist monk bound to an ever-flaming wheel, screaming in agony as it rolls from town to town looking for wicked to drag to Jigoku. Unfortunately for humans though, the Wanyudo doesn't discriminate when it comes to picking targets, and even just looking at the creature can end in your death. Tales have told of a woman in Kyoto who dared peek at the abomination as it rolled down her street, only for it to look back at her and screech,
"Instead of looking at me, have a look at your own child!"
Doing so, she saw her baby wailing in a pool of blood as its limbs were ripped from its body. Looking back to the Wanyudo, she screamed in horror as her baby's limbs were being devoured by the creature. So lesson learned, don't screw with Wanyudo. Ever. Finally, for our number one most terrifying yokai, yeah, I think we might need to give a slight warning about this one, because it actually deals with suicide. And the show really doesn't hold back on this one. So you guys okay? Alright. Our number one most haunting, horrifying yokai from Gegege no Kitaro is Kubire Oni, the Strangling Demon.
Okay, so a little backstory in the anime. Human protag Mana gets her first smartphone, and like any other junior high school kid in her position, has a friend coax her into getting an extremely shady app that sends curses out to anyone the user types out. From there, the receiver has 5 minutes to pass the curse on to someone else or suffer the effects of it. But unlike early 2000s chainmails, this one actually works. And the more you interact with it, the more cursed, depressed, and utterly drained you become, to a point where you seek to end your own life. And the Kubire Oni is absolutely willing to oblige.
Once a human driven to suicide by hanging, so deep was their malice upon death that they became the living essence of it. The Kubire Oni was said to eat at people's minds, making them more and more depressed until they could no longer stand living. That's when the Kubire Oni would drop its long tangled hair down to the victim and, well, you can guess the rest. Similarly to the Kubire Oni and Gegege no Kitaro drive people to suicide through the use of the aforementioned demon app. Now, I know I said in the beginning of this video that it was going to be about yokai and not the social commentary, but I think this bears mentioning considering the origin of Kubire Oni. This episode has a lot of overt commentary about cyberbullying, especially in the beginning. and rounds out by correlating, quote, cursing others via smartphone to a state of drained depression, which the Kubire Oni feeds off of. Currently, one of the biggest problems in Japan's schools right now are the horrendous occurrences of bullying that's been happening between students. Unfortunately, though, little is being done to curb it. And now that we live in an era of the net and anonymity, it's only getting easier for kids to be driven to self-destruction, personified by the Kubire Oni in this episode. I just wanted to point out how clever it was that a show like this could take monsters that are upwards of 1 to 500 years old, spin them into a modern interpretation, and make it work.
Seems like almost every single time the show rolls out another yokai of the week, it all ties back to some kind of life lesson or moral.
Well, that's the thing about yokai. Despite how unique and off the wall each of them are, most of them exist to either help explain unnatural phenomena or act as a negative consequence for poor life choices. In the case of the earlier, inspiriting of yokai were often used to explain abnormal behavior such as the Kubire Oni and depression, or Tanukitsuki and dietary compulsion. As for the latter, you've got yokai like Wanyudo, which acts as a deterrent from being too nosy, as in the case of Wanyudo's story, or even the Kappa as a deterrent for kids to keep them out of hazardous bodies of water. The only thing that's really changed is how they're depicted now, going from horrific nightmare fuel to cute and cuddly protectors. But that's one of the many reasons I still love this show. Not only do they keep the terror that each of these yokais originally possessed, they bring it into the modern era in ways I honestly can't believe a kid show can get away with. And if you want to see for yourself just how dark some of these yokai really are, you can watch all of Gegege no Kitaro on VRV. For those not in the know, VRV is a streaming service on PS4, Xbox One, PC, and smart devices that gives you access to over a dozen different channels worth of shows and movies, both new and nostalgic. These include incredibly popular shows like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 5, Goblin Slayer, and Fairy Tail's final season. But even if you're not into anime, you can find other amazing shows like Freakazoid, Rocko's Modern Life, or SWAT Cats. So if this sounds like a pretty sweet deal, head on over to vrv.co/gaijin for a 30-day free trial of VRV's premium membership, which not only lets you watch all these shows ad-free, but also offline on your smart devices. But thanks for watching, everyone! Before we go, we also have to give a big shout out to Matthew Meyer and his many books on yokai folklore, which are absolutely available for purchase and were critical for today's episode. Heck, we could probably make a yokai-based subseries thanks to folks like Matthew. But if you're hungry for more culture and games and anime, be sure to check out some of our other videos, or come hang with us at twitch.tv/Gaijin Goomba to catch our cultural breakdowns live. But until next time, everyone, this is Gaijin Goomba, signing out.